Hello, my name's Steve Mace from Solwise, and what I'm going to do now is go through my promised second video covering the guest internet hotspot gateway products. Apologies for the long delay. I know I said about 3 months ago I was going to rush off the second one, but anyway, things got in the way. So this is now the second video, and what this is going to do is go through the a quick video doing the basic setup and configuration of your hotspot gateway. So this is going to be from the basic level, just showing you very easily how quickly you can get this up and running, because if I was to do this properly in real time, you'd probably find that the setup would probably be all of about a 3-minute video. So it's going to be a bit longer than that, because at each stage I'm going to explain what's going on and what I'm doing, but hopefully you'll get the idea of what's involved in configuring these. So just to recap, hotspot gateways, if you don't know what they are or what they're used for, please go and see the first video, because I don't want to waste another 30 minutes telling you exactly what was in the first video. But range of hotspot gateways, basically designed to control guest internet access. Typical applications, we're talking about internet cafes, caravan sites, hotels, blah 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 blah, you name it, anywhere where you want to have guest Wi-Fi which you want to manage and control in a safe and secure way, and also maintain things like firewall proofness for credit card usage, etc, etc. So I've just got a couple out here from downstairs into stores. So we've got the R10, which is really much the middle of the road one. This one's got 2 WAN ports so it can take 2 internet streams in. And over here, I can't remember exactly, I think we've got an R2 and an R4. They're the 2 sort of entry models. The R2 is the smaller one and the R4 is the next model up. The difference being basically how many users and how fast internet they can cope with. As far as that, functionality and operation is pretty much the same for all the guest internet devices. This is actually a ticket printer, which I'll actually come into that in one of the later videos, but allows you to actually do on-the-fly ticket production with username and passwords for access. So it could sit on a counter in a cafe or in a clubhouse or whatever. So that's the product. I'll explain what I've got lying down here as far as the additional equipment. This is, as I say, I'm going to be using an R10 for this demonstration. On the back of it, I've got the internet feed which would come into the R10. That's actually coming from this little router here. So you could pretend this is your broadband internet router that you're using for internet access at the site or cafe or wherever. And coming out the back, I then have a LAN cable which is going to my PC. So my PC is pretending to be your sort of typical client that will be accessing this. Now, if you wanted this to be Wi-Fi, what you do is you just take that internet cable and connect it to a Wi-Fi infrastructure. So there's a series of access points covering the campsite or the hotel or whatever. So the key thing is the R10 sits in the middle, and all traffic from the clients, the public clients, has to go through the R10 before it can access the internet. So that's basically the layout. And what I'll do now is just run through a couple of quick slides, going through what we're going to be talking about in the next section. Okay, so let's start going through the actual configuration of your hotspot gateway. And what I'm going to do is going to break this into 4 different sections, covering basic preparing the gateway for use, using the gateway, the status functions you can get out of the gateway, and the management functions of the gateway. So let's go to the first section, which is preparing your gateway for use. And we're going to break this down into easy stages. So switching the gateway product on, we're going to run through the quick start wizard. If you'll see, if I run through the quick start wizard, literally it's 5 steps, and you can have the product up and going within 2 or 3 minutes. Checking your internet connection, setting the time zone, entering your business information, setting any disclaimers, and completing the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this live. So let me just transfer over to the actual browser screen. Okay, so you access the browser screen through your normal web browser, And if you've connected your client device, PC or whatever, to the LAN side of the Hotspot gateway, using DHCP on your client device, then to access the login page, the configuration page, all you do is type aplogin.com/admin and then press enter. When you do that, it should automatically be diverted to the administration setup page for your Hotspot gateway. So this is the page that we're talking about, and various stats information, uptime, date time, blah, 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 blah. So initially these should have all the default settings. Interesting things to note at the bottom is WAN IP address. So you need an IP address there. That shows you are actually connected to your default gateway or your router that you're using for the internet access. And various settings, information here about the DHCP range you're using on the LAN ports. And just to recap, this is an R10 model. Now the R10 model has 2 WAN ports available, but on this instance I've only enabled one of the WAN ports. So looking on the left hand side here, what we'll want to do first time is we'll just want to go through the setup wizard. So click on that and click on run. So now we're going to run the setup wizard. And as you can see, this is just 5 steps. And let's continue straight to step number 1. Step number 1 is it's just going to verify that you have an internet access. Now to run through the wizard, you have to have the device or the WAN port of the device connected to a functioning internet connection. You can't run the wizard without an internet connection connected to the device. So as you can see here on this screen, this is telling me I do have an internet connection by saying yes. If you haven't got an internet connection, then you need to go sort that out, find out what the problem is, you know, something wrong with your router that you're using or whatever, your cabling or whatever. And once you've got that sorted out, you can click on here, test the connection, and it will go through and try to re-verify that you do actually have a valid internet connection. Once you've got that sorted out, you can go to step 2. Fairly painless page this. It wants to know what time zone you're on. So we are on what did I do then? Europe, London for the UK. You need to put in a admin password. So out of the box, the device doesn't have an admin password, so you need to give it an admin password. I'm going to be boring and just call mine admin. So my username will be admin and my password will be admin. Obviously in the real world, you'll probably want to give that something more cryptic. And now we're going to save the setting. Don't want to bother saving that into my Firefox. And now we've got the login branding page. So by default, it has a number of backgrounds. These are what are going to appear on the login page that the users are going to see either through their phone device, client device, PC or whatever. So it's got some standard backgrounds. You can actually, if you want, do a custom background, but we'll stick to one of the standard backgrounds just for this quick example. So I'm just going to click on coffee bar. Down here, there's various boxes for things like the company name, address, actually let's change that to Priory Tech Park, the city. Obviously in real life you put your company details on here or your client's company details, whatever you want them to see on the login pages. State, IDING, 213 9 Papa Bravo, phone 14826728666, email sales@solwise.co.uk, and the website for the company www.solwise.co.uk. solwise.co.uk. Any information you also want them to see on the login page, like I don't know, my Wi-Fi, I don't know, whatever you want to put in there, whatever you want them to see on the login page. Save and continue once you put that information in. Do you want to have controlled access or unlimited access? So controlled access means they'll have to go through some form of authentication, be that by an access code that you have to give the user, or he could actually log in using things like Facebook, social media, for example, or you can basically click unlimited, which means they won't be asked for anything when they actually try to connect. So I'm going to put on controlled access, which is normally what you would probably want to do. Yet again, login instructions that you want to see on the actual login page. So by default it says they'll hit the message saying please enter your login token. Click the setup and finish. And that's it. So now at this stage the unit is actually configured and ready to go. All we need to do is reboot for those savings to be applied. So I'm now going to click on reboot and wait for it to finish rebooting. So the reboot is now complete. So if you go to the left hand side here under status, click on system information. So the device is now up and running, and we can test, if you want to see what the login page looks like, if we do the aplogin.com but without the admin on the end. So it won't go to administration, you just do a normal login. It will actually bring up the login page that the user will see. So this is whether they connect via Wi-Fi or the LAN, basically anything that goes through the LAN port of the device. So this will see on their phone or laptop or whatever they're using. So we can see what they'll see here. So that's the My Wi-Fi message that I put up there. Obviously you could put more detailed messages on there, like, hey, welcome to my CAF. Please use my Wi-Fi, sensibly, blah, 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 blah. And here they can click on to go to the T's and C's, which you can edit on the device if you want to, and the login code that they would have to enter there. So that's the screen that they'll actually see when they, after you've actually gone through the wizard creating it. So let's continue to the next section. So the next section that we're going to go through is using your gateway, and here we're going to cover operating the guest internet gateway unit and using a second login for accessing code generation and management. So let's look at the next slide. So this just runs through a basic breakdown of the menu structure that you've seen previously. So when you log in as administrator, that's doing that aplogin.com/admin. You see a menu on the left which has the setup wizard. You've seen the setup wizard, we've already gone through that. Status page, obviously showing you that as well. We have a management section, where you have functions to administer your internet service and manage codes, etc. And you have advanced settings where you can do things like change the technical parameters, play around with IP addresses and that sort of thing. So let's go on to the second section, which was creating access codes. So what I'll do is I'll show you the slide first of all, and then we'll go to the actual device and you can see the screens I'm talking about. So there are two ways of logging into the Hotspot gateway. The one we've covered so far is by going into administration, which is aplogin.com/admin. But instead of aplogin.com, you could actually use the IP address 192.168.96.1. So 192.168.96.1 is exactly the same as aplogin.com. So you could type in 192.168.96.1/admin. That's assuming the device is on its default IP settings. So if you do that /admin, you get into the administration pages, which you've already seen. I've shown you some of them, like the setup wizard and the system information. You can also alternatively type in aplogin.com/codes. So this takes you into a restricted login method on the device, which is purely there just for code generation. So admin access would obviously be for the administrator, technical guys, that sort of thing, whereas code access is for end user staff creating codes for clients, customers, and that sort of thing. So let's show you what that looks like in real life. So before we can actually allow code generation login or access to the code generation login page, we have to enable that in the device. It's not enabled by default. So to do that, we log in as administrator, and then we go under management, we go to change password. Now on this screen we've already seen the administrator password, but at the bottom here we've got a second password you can put in just for code generation. So that's using the username codes. Well, I'm going to be even more non-original and type in codes for the password for that. Obviously in real life you probably want to use something a little bit more sensible. I'm going to do change password. I'm not going to bother saving that. So that page, that password has now been created on the system. So if I do aplogin.com/codes, enter, comes up asking for the username and password. So it's codes and codes, which is the password I just created. Click on OK. Don't bother saving that. So now we're into the screen that you would usually use for front of house staff to actually create access codes. So you can add codes here, manage existing codes, for example. So if I click on that, here we are. We can create a code, etc., 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 etc. So let's exit management. Click on that. We can also manage. Of course, we haven't got any yet, so click on that, and we can click on create view codes. So this is what we probably want to be going into more often. So this allows you to pre-create codes. All right. So what you can do is code type random, number of codes to create. So you can say let's create, I don't know, 100 codes or something like that. Expiry time for them, the number of users, and you could put limitations. Let's go back to 10 codes, for example. You can put limitations on the download speed and the upload speed, a limitation on there, and you click on create codes and it goes off and creates the codes. So let's click on create codes. And there you are, it has now created the codes. Which obviously you could print out or something like that. So that's how you do create custom codes for users. You could also, if you want, put a button on here. So if we click on add one click button, we're going to call this a 30min button. All right, 30 min won't be original on that. Create button, exit management. So now what we've done is, rather than going through the long-winded process of pre-creating codes, we've done a quick create button of 30 minutes. So you just click on 30 minutes and a new code is automatically generated, which you can then hand across to the user. Or we could actually create another code. I don't know, let's create a 60min code, for example. Which is an hour, and let's do create button. So now we've got another button, exit management. We've now got 2 buttons. So if it's a CAF or something like that, you can just quickly create a code, or the administrator will create a code and then quickly then the users, the front of house staff, can quickly pop up 60 minutes, for example, and quickly create a 60-minute code which they can then give to the end customer. So that's code generation, nice and quick and easy. Okay, so let's go along to the next section. Okay, status functions. So now we're going to go through the various status information pages that we can get out of the system. So we're going to go through the system information, the connected users, the usage reports, and the billing reports. So yet again, just to show you that this system really does work, I'm going to do this live. So let's change over to my Firefox again. So we're back on the administrators page, and you can see it's left from when I last created that password change for the codes access. And what we can do now is go through the various status informations that I quickly showed in that slide. So if we go to system information, so I touched on this before. The system information just tells you the uptime, the hostname aplogin.com. That's what we can use for quick access to the configuration, administrator configuration, or the codes access, for example, the date, time zones, and that sort of thing. Firmware, serial numbers, is the hotspot enabled? Yes. Codes created or codes used, and that's that 12 codes that I created. Remember, I did 10 pre-done ones, and I did 2 through the quick buttons. The WAN address and the IP settings used for the LAN side. So that's fairly explanatory, really. So now what we can do is go to the next status page, which is connected users. Now, obviously, these are a bit boring at the moment because we don't really have very many connected users. But as you can see, it breaks it down into authenticated users, that's logged in users, connected users. So these are people that are connected to it, but not actually logged in. And the IP address is issued, so this is for the DHCP side. Obviously, in real life, you'd have a whole pile of entries all running down here for all the users that you're using, or the users that are using the system. It's got a usage reports. So the usage reports gives things like the hotspot usage, which, as you can see, this unit's brand new, never been used, so it's nothing. You can use the last 28 days or the last 7 days, for example. Says the last 7 days. Yet again, obviously in real life, you'd have loads of bar graphs of traffic on here for usage, and we have the various login times. So this is the number of users based upon the hours of the day. New versus returning guests. Interesting little stats, tells you who's a new one or how many of them have actually returned a second time. Devices used for access, obviously a bit boring at the moment, nothing in there. You can, if you want, get these reports emailed to you. So you could put an email address in there, but before you put an email address in there, you have to go and tell this device about the email server that you want it to actually send the stuff to. So that's what this link does. It actually takes you to the page to actually set up the email system on the device. And if you're doing payment by PayPal, yet again, it will give you more information about here about the PayPal users, usage they did, login details, etc., etc. That can actually also be downloaded as a separate CSV file. So that's the usage report. As I say, that can be emailed to if you want to, either on the spur of the moment or regularly, for example, as it says here, every day at 12 AM. Next page, we've got billing reports. So that will give you actually how much money's gone through the system today, yesterday, this month, last month, etc. And yet again, that can be emailed to you as well. And you can download it as a CSV file. So that's the status pages gone through. And what I can do is, if I show you some a slide, we can actually show you what the PayPal billing report would look like. So let me just flip over back to my PowerPoint presentation. So this is what a billing report might typically look like. So you can hear it broken down. We actually have the values that have actually gone through the system this month, yesterday, today so far, etc. We have the date of time, the amount of money you took from them, the code they were dishing out, the transaction. This is the PayPal transaction ID, and when they actually went through and actually did logging in. Oh, what happened then? Damn. Now the other thing I don't understand here is what this means. I'm guessing something went wrong trying to talk to the PayPal portal. It's not my slide, it's guest internet side, this, or Fire4 side, so I don't know what this actually means. But the important thing is the information here showing you when the transactions took place and the money that you actually took from the people. So now we're going to go through the management functions, and I've broken the management functions into 4 subsections. How to manage the codes, how to tune hotspot availability, changing passwords, and rebooting the system. So what I'll do is, rather than showing us on slide, yet again, I'll go through and actually show you what this is live using Firefox, accessing the administration pages. Okay, so we're back into the administration setup of the Hotspot gateway. And what we're doing now is we're just covering these few menu items here. So we'll go to Manage Codes, which is the first thing I mentioned. So this is a way of actually creating codes through the administrator access. Obviously before I showed you how to do it through the code login. So this was doing AP login/codes. So this is really for your front of house staff. This is the administrator access to it. So similar screen that you saw on the codes access, how to create codes, blah, blah, blah. So you can pre-create codes there. You also, if you want, I've got the option to import codes from CSV file, though I don't actually know of anybody who does that. And this just explains some of those parameters we saw before. So we have usage. So that sets how many users you actually want to be able to set this code. That can sometimes be useful, for example, for families or something like that. So you want to give one code that can be used by all members of the family. So you could change the number of users for the codes. You've got the speed. So guests using this code will be throttled limited to the speed selected. And the default is set on the bandwidth control page. So if I go to the bandwidth control page and just show you what that would look like. Now normally I would go through this on the on further videos, which I'll be covering the advanced sections of it, but quickly flip to that and you can see what we're talking about here. So on the bandwidth control page, you've got 2 sections, default speed limits. So speed limits can also be set for individuals when doing controlled access. So this is the download and upload speed limits. And this is for the login sessions. Yet again, download and upload parameters for that. Let's go back to that. I'll cover that in more detail when we actually do the advanced videos later on. And we've got limit, which is actually setting the data limit. So this is the amount of data limitation. So you've got the speed and you've actually got the amount of data that can upload and download. Now this has been added because it's not very often nowadays, but some installations or sites are on an internet service where they actually pay for the amount of data. In the old days, this used to be for people who are doing satellite internet, where you pay for internet data. But nowadays, I suppose it's more relevant if people are using some form of 4G connectivity to supply their public gateways guest access. So data usually ends up costing you a few quid on a 4G service. So you may want to actually set this, for example, to, I don't know, 512 megabyte or 2 gig or whatever. So we have limitations on that, and we have limitations on the speed as well. And also on this, we can actually find codes that we've created and either individually look at the codes for deletion purposes or something like that. But I can click on view all codes here, and you've already seen this screen already. Through the codes access, this is just showing you all the codes that we created further on using that through the codes code screen. Okay, so that's code management. Hotspot availability. So this is where we can actually set scheduling for when people can actually access the hotspot gateway. So by default, they can access at any time, but we could actually go through scheduled access. So we can click on date and times, days of the week, and time of the day when they can have access and when they can't have access. And convenience, it's just done as a series by the hours and by the days. So that's hotspot availability. I hope that is fairly logical and obvious for you. Let's go that back. Password screen. This is where we can alter the administration passwords and the password for accessing the code setup screen. So the administration password, well, in my case, I've just been boring and put admin in there, but you could actually change that password. And the code screen, remember this is the code screen. Where's the code screen? Yep, there's the code screen, which you do by aplogin.com/codes. You need a password for that, and you need a password for the admin. So this is where you set the password to access the codes screen. Hope that was fairly obvious and easy. Right, let's go to the next thing, which is, right, just flip over my pages here, which is the reboot page. Reboot page. Through this we can actually reboot the whole system now, or we can set an auto boot at certain times of day. And that's it. So that's it. That's basically my video over with. I've gone through the basic quick configuration of your hotspot gateway. There are a lot more sophisticated functions now, because I've only gone through these status menus here and the management menus. If we click on advanced here, you can see there are a lot more sophisticated setup. For example, setting up PayPal, disclaimers, time zones, filtering, bandwidth control, firewall monitoring, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot more sophisticated stuff this actually can show you, but to get the system up and running, all you need to do is that basic configuration that I've shown you in this video. And as you can see, if you went through the setup wizard, honestly, I don't see any reason why any user can't get this system up and running in less than 10 minutes. Less than 5 minutes, if I was to be honest. Just to go through that setup wizard is a very, very quick setup. So that's basically the video over with. There are further functions that we could cover, but I'll leave those for later videos. They're under the advanced setting menu item, where we can do things like set up the PayPal, alter text, bandwidth control, content filtering, and all that sort of thing. I won't cover those in this video. The purpose of this video is to show you how quickly you can get the system up and running. So as I showed right at the start, if you went through that setup wizard, you would honestly be able to get this system up and running within 5 or 10 minutes. I can't see any reason why anybody can't get it going within 5 or 10 minutes. You pick your default screen, put in your company details, create a few codes, click on go. That's it. So I hope you found that informative. And what I'll do now is go ahead and prepare the next video where we can go through the advanced configuration and advanced settings. And that's quite a long one, so I have broken that down into more than one video, because there are a lot of advanced settings you can do with this system. It's very sophisticated. Anyway, that's it, and thank you for watching.